I will get you that first inspection.
Oh yeah, can you do that before you leave today?
Yeah.
Sweet.
You want me to just put it on Robin's desk or something?
Put it in my mailbox.
Prettier picture. That's a really good picture.
Yeah, it's getting old.
There's sports right in that bag too.
Oh, thanks.
For sports, it's more like a sport.
Sport.
One of the two.
Similar, same
Is
thing.
this same chicken or is there a difference?
Spicy, regular.
Doing, Josh? You going to, Jeff Buffer at the
No.
Gorge?
Yeah.
No.
You're not gonna go? I don't think I'll go either, but I'm sure I'll host somebody. Brian's gonna go.
When is that?
Into September.
Oh.
They have a bunch of concerts.
You must be Brandon Thomas. I'm Brendan Thorstad. I see your name in emails all the time, and people have sent me stuff, and I'm like, you got the wrong Brandon here.
Well, well, to make it even worse, there's two Brandon Thomases.
There is.
Yeah.
Brandon,
They're working tomorrow. I'm the first one, together tomorrow.
You are the first one. That is confusing. So you're working together tomorrow?
Thursday.
Ooh, they're crossing the streams.
I can tie on the alphabet list though, I'm doing R.
No, we're gonna open a rift in the space.
Yeah, that's really confusing.
So refresh me, Seth, that list you gave me, I have to set those guys up, they haven't already set up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and some of them already were sent. Joel, Brian, Ray.
All right. Hey, it's Mark. Hi, Mark.
How's it going?
Seattle Tune. I'm dying to hear about this.
Me too. That takes lots of doing.
What's that?
Oh, we got forks.
We got support.
We got two forks. Sporks and grape soda.
This is when it starts ramping up, right? I don't wanna steal your thunder, but.
Yeah, I guess.
Yep.
I ordered 4 controllers.
It's gonna. I thought January 1.
Replacing,
I'd just go to wake up and I'll be focusing on N4 and
you know,
maintenance,
I've
and
never got around
I
to
got
that.
the call.
It's,
I'm getting lots of calls, and I'm working with Perry on manpower because I think we have the manpower. It's just a matter of
No,
scheduling it.
no, I haven't done them on purpose. You know, I mean, if they're not, you know,
Let me know when you want me to get started here, Seth.
Go for it. Are you doing one at the sales?
and, but I gotta.
I've pitched it to the salespeople multiple times.
You know, I know I'm gonna take a super snow soon on that.
I did like downtown presentation. I did a zone 4 presentation,
So,
zone 3.
if it's a crisis to get it out, like.
So Seattle Tune implies that it's just downtown now, right?
City of Seattle. All right. Well, you guys, I'll get started. So I have half hour. Half hour is going to give you a lot more information than just a really overview. It still will go into depth some of the parts of the pieces of it, but it is still an overview.
I haven't done it. I can send the parts back.
Hey, Mark.
Sorry about that. I'll do it online. So, you guys get busy eating, texting. This right here has the summary. This is the summary right here. They're right there in the back. I encourage you to grab one or two just to help remind you of what this is about. It's just a great summary. It's a great thing to hand off to your customers. So take a look at that. So those of you who don't know me, most of you do, I'm Greg Galusha. I'm part of the service organization for many years. I help the service maintenance sales team sell control maintenances. From womb to tomb, that means estimating, that means identifying, that means helping them with account management, back talking with our customers about building automation systems that we've installed and making sure that we're maintaining them. Because I work for Dave Herr and I do a little bit of BPG work, they said, hey, that guy would be a great one to know about the building tune. So I'm helping our customers throughout our portfolio. You know, I've talked with some of the CSPTI customers. We're gonna start talking to some healthcare customers, service, BPG, and project customers about these building tune-ups. In fact, as I alluded to, I thought January 1, it's all over with, the rush. Nope, just got started. And these building tunes are on, it's on everybody's mind. And if they're not on all your customers' minds, they really need to be. So today, you know, what I'd like to do is just cover, you know, what is it? How it might impact you. I know you're out talking with your customers care about this, they're concerned about it, and we can help them. We certainly can help them be low-cost compliant, or like I tell my customers, I'm like a tax attorney. How do I maximize or minimize the impact of this code? And how can I maximize what we're doing out there for these tune-ups to give most value to your organization? So if you do have to spend money or you have to be compliant, how can we make you compliant with most value to your organization, meaning to your building? So just a high-level overview, and we'll get in. I'll go high level, and we'll start digging deep into all the little details. Really, what the building tune-up is, the city calls it a retro commissioning light. Being a maintenance salesperson, you guys being maintenance people, I call it a maintenance inspection. This really is a maintenance inspection. Filters clean, coils clean, the faucets drip, the aux sensors on the lights work. Those are maintenance level items, not really commissioning items, those are maintenance items. It's every commercial building over 50,000 square foot in the city of Seattle. So that isn't just downtown, it's gotta be 50,000 square foot where most of the buildings over 50 will be, but there's 50,000 square foot buildings everywhere in Seattle. Original compliance started March 1 for the big buildings. This morning I had a talk with one of the guys that has multiple high rises. He's working hard towards that March 1 deadline.
Do you know how many buildings there are that fall into that
Excellent question. 750
in Seattle?
in the city of Seattle. Take out about 80 or 90 for the school district, and that's what the portfolio of buildings are for this tune-up. You can find that somewhere in this code. I'm going to pass this guy around. This is back in 2016, they started writing this, 2017 they approved it. This is basically the rule book. You want to take a look at it if you can't sleep at night. Yeah, bathroom reading, yeah, exactly. So why do they pass this? Let's see, high level, why did they pass this? Well, back in 2010, the city passed a law that every building, so every type of building over 20,000 square foot, had to put their energy data into Energy Star, and then connect that to the city of Seattle's website. And they're monitoring this energy performance of their building stock. And over the last 5 years or so, they start saying, hey, wait, we're passing all these codes to make these buildings more energy efficient. They're not becoming more energy efficient. What do we do about it? That's where this came about. Now, in that document, I don't tell customers this is what we feel. The document says that this tune-up, if you do it right, 10 to 15% energy savings with a 2 to 3 year payback. What it kind of feels like to me is more like 5% on a high side, and probably 2 to 5 years in a simple payback.
They only have to do it once, or is it
Once every 5 years. Yeah, I didn't make that clear. So it's one tune-up once every 5 years. So I want to jump here. I mentioned the benchmarking. That's where all this started. City just passed a law that said everybody who's connected to them, they're going to put their website, their data out for the public to view. One of those view portals is the Seattle benchmarking website. So if you go on anywhere, click on one of these little dots, we can pull up a little energy benchmarking. If you guys want, I can pull up one of your buildings right now. We can see how they're performing. I use this every time I go talk to somebody in downtown Seattle. It's because it's a good starting point. 720 Olive, just talked to them 2 weeks ago about building tuning. You know, according to this, you won't be able to see it here, but it says here the property size, built, Energy Star score 91. You know, I brought that up to the customer. Hey, I don't think you're going to need to do the tune. You're 91. He says, no, there's no way that building's a 91. If you know the building, it's pneumatics, a little bit of disc tech in there, all pneumatics, rest of the building. Chiller doesn't have a separate schedule than the air handler. How's that 91? We don't know. But this is kind of fun. If you guys want this website, I can forward this on to you. It is kind of neat if you wanted to compare with your buddies and say, hey, my building's an 80, their building's a 92, you know.
So Greg, they still want the tune-up, and I mean, if they're at 91, they would have gotten by, right?
We'll get into alternative compliance. Yeah, that's part of those conversations. We have to validate that. And I think for that customer, this customer specifically, he's talking about what there's called alternative compliance. And you don't always have to do a tune. Sometimes you can do what's called an alternative. And it might be better, lower cost, or more effective for your building. And what he's alluding to is this is a very high Energy Star score. Those buildings can be exempt. However, this hasn't been certified. And he's concerned based on what he knows about in the building that is it really going to be a 91? And that's a risk. So that's why he's preparing for the budgets here.
What's a good score? Is 91, is it?
91 is an excellent score. Yeah, it really is. And if it's certified that, okay. If some, CEM wants to put his, or PE wants to put his license behind that, that's fine. But we wouldn't and I don't know if this guy, the chief engineer, is thinking that it would actually pass as a 91. It's all data.
Anything in the 80s is pretty good. Upper 80s is great. You're in the 90s.
You're doing spectacular. Yeah.
So it's a sliding scale, right?
And it changes all the time.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
So competition keeps getting better. So you might have, occasionally we've had 4 or 5 perfect scores before.
Yeah.
But then next year, everybody else catches up and you slide down a little bit.
So Energy Star score, yeah, I should actually pause here. The Energy Star score, it's developed by the DOE, and you put your building energy in there. So you put your your electric, your gas, your steam, whatever utilities you're using, and it normalizes the weather based on engineering calculations. So we're comparing 400,000 square foot office buildings throughout the country, the total energy usage. And so you get an Energy Star score based on how good you are doing. So 100 is the best, 1 is the worst, 50 is the median. There's also another number that they throw out. It's called EUI. That's Energy Usage Index. And that's all your energy divided by the square footage. And that, of course, is the opposite direction. So the more you consume, the least efficient you are. So if you're using a lot of kilowatts, it's going to be a lot of kilowatts per square foot. And those are the 2 numbers they use. Any other questions? Energy Star score? This is 2015 data. 2016, 2017 will be on there. All your customers' buildings' laundry is right here. And that's what they're trying to do, a little bit of public shaming on folks to make your buildings more energy efficient. So the basics of the tune-up. Start off with buildings that are required. So it's every building over 50,000 square foot commercial space, mixed-use space of 50,000. So if you have a building with a podium, a good example, Watermark Office Tower, there's that condo tower on top. There's 200 or 100 to 200,000 square foot of office. That office needs to be tuned. The condo tower, we can ignore. It includes managed care. So managed care is like your hospitals. It's hospitals and where they're Alzheimer's type care. Retirement homes don't apply, condos don't apply, dorms don't apply, but hotels and hospitals do. There's some special cases. This is I call it the teriyaki restaurant exemption, right? If a customer has this big office building, they have a teriyaki place and they say, hey, you can take care of your own HVAC. We can exempt that, and we don't have to look at it when you're doing the building tune. But where this gets tricky is there are data centers in office buildings that are over 5,000 square foot that have their own HVAC that they take care of. How does an owner force them to do the action items that might come out of this? In fact, actually, I've had these conversations with some of your customers about, what do we do about XYZ data center who takes care of their own HVAC? What if we find out that they're not doing a good maintenance on it and they have to do some action items? How do you force them to do these action items, or who pays for those action items? And so that's what your property managers and your engineers are thinking about when they're doing these. Parking, we'll still have to do the audits on the parking, and special use equipment, refrigeration, servers, manufacturing equipment, stuff like that, we don't have to worry about, which is really good. Timeline. So it's a tiered timeline, starting here in March 1. So I had a conversation this morning about a building that's due March 1. It's going to take us some time to get through these. So I'm coaching customers, the sooner you can get us to help you, the sooner we'll get you compliant by this date. If you wait till January 1, it's going to be a rush. Of course, we get smaller buildings as we go along, all the way out to 2021. I think it's pretty tiered, as in, I think the big slug of buildings is in this area right here. So it's more tail end. This one, there's all crunch time.
But there's 700 in the first group.
No, 700 total in all these. I think this is the smallest group. This gets a little bigger, and those that are bigger right now. The two smaller categories. Yeah?
Is there any kind of grace period with that, or is March 1st,
You can get a 6 months extension, but you have to have reasons to get that extension. You have to kind of justify that. And there are penalties, and I'll cover penalties in a few slides.
So before you jump ahead, and if this question derails it, then just don't answer it. But whatever happened to the 2030?
2030, that's still around, but that's a whole different initiative. I think that's a design build initiative, where this is a existing building, you need to tune it.
Okay.
The 2030 district is kind of a private group, you know, pushed by the UNOCO guys largely, about targets, future targets that everyone could opt into voluntarily, whereas this is law.
Sure. It seemed like a media hype at the time.
Yeah, this is code. Again, you know, we're a tax man, right? We're here to collect the taxes somewhat.
It's like
So
taking your car,
yeah, right. It's very similar to admission tests. So you got to do it. So what is this tune-up? I'll just start, high level. What is a tune-up process? First of all, we have to have a tune-up specialist. That's a CEM. That's a PE. That's a BOC2, Building Operations, whatever that C stands for. That's a BOMA certification, level 2. So some of your customers are certified to do this tune-up. We have the PEs, we have CEMs, we have the commissioning agents that are qualified to do this tune-up. The first thing that they'll do is look at the energy performance. They'll set up an audit based on what they see in the energy performance on Energy Star. They'll go through the building. They'll do an audit of the building. And they'll assess the building based on what the tasks are in that document. They'll come back and say, required action items, recommended action items. You have to do those required action items. The next step there is really you got to talk to them about what action items are required. And it's either they're going to do it, we're going to do it, or they're going to have someone else do it. The next step really is it's verification. So, okay, if we do it, Seth fills out his work order. Okay, Seth did the work. We've verified. But if they hire McKinstry, well, I don't know if they did it or not. What's the quality of McKinstry's work? So we got to go verify it. They go hire a plumbing firm. They go hire a building envelope firm to fix the hole in the roof. We got to go verify that that hole was fixed, or that irrigation system was fixed, or that filter was changed. Last is you got to fill out the city's paperwork. A lot of fun. So the basics, like I said, it's an Energy Star validation. So like I mentioned, that building that's an Energy Star 91, which is a good discussion. Is it really a 91? Do they have the occupancy rate, occupancy correct? Are they dividing by the square footage of the parking garage into all the office space when they should be not doing that? Those are basic stuff that we got to go verify in the audits. Then we have to go look at HVAC equipment, lighting, water systems, domestic water, heating, hot water systems, and the building envelope. And what they want us to do is in a building like a high-rise, where you have a central plant and floor-by-floor air handlers or VAVs, we have to look at 12% of all the common equipment. So a good example, let's say Century Square, 800 VAV boxes, we have to go look at 86 of those or 90 of those VAV boxes. 20 floors of air handlers, I gotta look at, well, minimum 10. I gotta look at minimum 10, excuse me, is it minimum 10 or 20? I forget, I think it's 20. I gotta look at all those air handlers, I gotta look at all the plumbing fixtures. Gotta look at 12% of the lighting fixtures, do they work? The aux sensors, right? Well, I'm pointing to the switches, but that's what you put the aux sensors, right? Do those aux sensors work? And that's what that assessment piece is. Now, what this can mean for us, my meeting this morning, I was talking to one of our friends in the marketplace, and he's going to do most of the tune in-house. Well, part of that HVAC is controls. Now, I was trying to push him to say, hey, I want to look at your heat pumps, and I have some manpower during February and March. I can look at all your heat pumps. Real easy for me to dedicate 2 guys to go do that. I have another staff of guys that can do that. Well, he didn't want us to look at the heat pumps. He wanted to do that in-house, but he asked us, can we do the controls? And can you do that for under 100 hours? We'll see. So that's where, actually I wanted to talk to Mark because he's got some connections with CBRE. I have a sneaking suspicion they're going to do a lot of it in-house. Can we help them look at that HVAC? A good example.
More than a sneaking suspicion. Sounds different.
So this is Safeway Plaza. Take a look at this. This is a proposal that's sold. We're going to do this audit here in February. We don't do any maintenance there. 5 or 6 5-ton package units on the roof of the retail space, and then Safeway probably has what, a 20-tonner, 40-tonner on the roof. I don't know. You'll see a dispatch request come through. Someone's going to be dispatched to that site to help out with the tasking on the HVAC equipment. We'd rather have you guys do it because, why? Because you're going to find, oh yeah, the filters are dirty, I can do something about it, or hey, there's something going on with this compressor. Because the auditor is going to go through, he may not notice that knocking noise, like you guys would not notice the knocking noise. Boy, that's real indicative of a compressor doing this or that. So that's why we'd like to dispatch request HVAC techs to help us with these audits. And so that's kind of that WIFM that for the service technicians, is that we might be doing some looking at VAVs or heat pumps as we can find some customers. Tasks, very simple. I pick on lighting because everyone, well, my customers really understand lighting better than they understand HVAC, but it's aux sensors, do they work? Lighting schedules, HVAC schedules, resets, sensors in the right locations, faucets leaking, toilets run through, basic stuff like irrigation system schedules. I mean, it's real basic stuff. It's maintenance action items. If you were to review it, it's on that document I sent through. That's what they're asking us to do. Very basic stuff, but it can be time intensive, right? How many schedules does Columbia Tower have? Probably a lot.
Are you thinking about where we do have a contract, minimizing the impact by blending it with a service visit?
I know I've done a good job of presenting when people ask a question about the next slide. So that's exactly. So where you guys do maintenance, we can offer a lower cost tune. Because those maintenance items that you guys are doing on a regular basis, why do I send somebody out through to do what you're already doing? I mean, your maintenance are more extensive. We have the best check sheets. We have all the tools to validate what you're doing, the Mac lens. We have quarterly maintenance tasks. We have a whole staff that's built around these robust maintenances. I don't need to do it. Mentioned we can do full building tunes. We have the staff to do that. And then also we can do the partial tune, kind of like I talked about with Columbia Center, where they asked us, can we just look at the controls piece to help them with the tune-up? They'll do the rest of the tasks, we'll just look at one component of it. And those are 3 solutions that we can provide our customers. So here's an example. Millennium Tower. You know, I originally estimated about 15,000 to do that tune-up. Because we do the maintenance, we can reduce that cost. I think these are older costs. I think I would sell it for more now. But it still shows the point that, hey, because we're there, because we're helping our customers, because we provide quality maintenances that we can put our name behind, we can reduce those costs to our customers. And then here's their Energy Star website again. You know, they said 78. I think he told me it was 79. Not compliant through alternative compliance. So that gets into alternative compliance. You know, the tune-up. I mean, if you're thinking through this, you're probably asking, well, shoot, you know, a lot of my customers already have engineering staff. They are already hiring us to do maintenance. So they're probably in the top half of this category of Energy Stars. You know, what are we going to find? What are we going to find in this building tune if you're already hired Mac Miller to do maintenance? They approve all the work orders. They have engineering staff. That's a good question. What will we find? And so that's where that consulting conversation gets into with our customers. And I start looking at, I don't typically throw this out at people because it's throw you for a loop. Again, you need to fall asleep. Here's another document to help you fall asleep. Yeah, Reed helped me with this one. But it's just like alternative processes, alternative compliance methods.
That's a flow chart.
That's a flow chart.
Greg?
Yeah.
Dan asked me a question. If we're doing maintenance, and then say, for example, Martin Smith wants to use our maintenance check sheets for the building tune,
Mm-hmm.
but they have a bunch of repairs that they aren't approving.
Mm-hmm.
Is this leverage that they have to fix it, or do they fall within compliance just because we're checking?
Depends on the repairs, but yes. One of the things where I said, like, back here to this one, this cost does not include what we find. So we go into a building, there are buildings out there. You walk in, let's look at 10% of the VAVs, and every VAV is clogged. Or the fan motors are dead, the compressors are dead, stuff, you know, basic maintenance items aren't done. And if you find them if you're sampling 12%, so if you find half of those have that same action item, we're gonna have to recommend to the customer that you fix every single one in the building. And that can be expensive. And so and then same here, if I'm doing the maintenance, and we're gonna have to give you a call and say, hey, Don, where are we with all these extra work orders? Are there extra work orders? What's missing in this? I mean, I see the tasking, that doesn't flesh out the full story. We're gonna have to have that conversation. You know, it will come to light that, hey, we gotta do this stuff. Because we can't put our name on something that is dirty, it doesn't meet the code. And so that's where that emphasis is. And that's where owners get scared too, because they look at this and go, well, how many dollars are you gonna go find?
Well, hopefully it's already been addressed if we have it under maintenance screen, but
Absolutely.
doesn't mean they'll fix it.
It doesn't mean they'll fix it. Yeah. And I've had a conversation with one customer. We talked about, we'll get to the assessment, we'll come through and here's your action items. And I said, well, shoot, I'm ready if you need to, if we find more assessment items that you don't want to do the rest and just you want to pay the penalty. Okay. I mean, there are some buildings that probably will have that issue. Because there are some out there that are going to be ugly, very ugly. Maybe our customers, I have a sneaking suspicion they're not our customers because they didn't hire us for these maintenances. They're going off the lowest bid, and you're going to find a lot of problems if you do those tunes. So alternatives, exemplary, equivalent, and exemptions, high Energy Star score, low cost way of being compliant. We can do these for $3 to $5 grand. They have to certify above those numbers. LEED, gold, or platinum. That's expensive to do, but we don't do that. We don't certify the buildings, but we can do some of the projects that would get them certified, if that makes sense. And then this living building, that's the Bullet Center. I think Brooks Sports, but those are exemptions.
Are you sure we don't certify LEED buildings? Didn't we do that?
Well, we can do some projects behind it. So if they want high Energy Star score, or, you know, a certain type of filtration or a certain amount of ventilation, we can make the building operate that way. But I don't, my understanding is we don't do the paperwork behind the scenes to go get them certified.
Okay, so it's more like ASHRAE studies, we will certify those.
Yeah, yeah. But they have to, like Brad over at Columbia Center, he didn't do this the right timeline. So city says, nope, even though you're certified, we don't care, you're gonna do it too. Equivalence. This is where I might spend the most time with our customers. Continuous commissioning is, you know, it's that analytics software you've heard about. Probably the word Iconics or analytics qualify for continuous commissioning. That can be a consulting process. So that can be Brian Hansen meeting with the team quarterly, on-site, monthly report cards, reviewing their energy bills, and reviewing the building, doing kind of on-site walks when we're there. Retro commissioning, if you're familiar with that program, it's going diffuser by diffuser, air handler by air handler, looking at the airflows and maximizing it, or, you know, if it's supposed to be 100 CFM here, making sure it's 100. You're fully exempt, so you don't have to do any part of the tune if you do these. So if you do that retro commissioning program, you can get grant dollars from the city, and all the benefits of a retro commissioning, which they do say are 2 to 5 year paybacks. In fact, DSHS, Cherry Hill, we went to talk to them about building tune-ups. They have this looming thing, hey, you can do this program. Oh, well, I have this problem with this RZ system, and okay, so, oh yeah, okay, we'll get rid of the RZ system, and we told them, let's do the retro commissioning so that you can be compliant. And they decided yes, and I heard Mark singing hallelujah.
Are they getting?
We're not getting rid of the RZ system, we're putting a facelift on it.
Yeah, we're putting a facelift on it. We're leaving some there for Mark's retirement.
We're building the house of cards.
Yeah.
Those eggs are staying?
I'm still gonna be the only guy who can walk around.
Yes, yeah, that's a dirty secret. So yeah, that's one option. The energy audit, that's an ASHRAE level 2. This next one, like we said, EUI is your energy usage index. So again, if it's all the utility, all the kilowatts, all the therms that they use in a building divided by the square footage. If you're in the most efficient 50% of Seattle buildings, and you improve that score by 15%, you can get alternatively compliant. And it can't be from vacancy or use change. So if it's a data center, you make it into office, you have 15 or 20% usage reduction, you can't use that. But if you've done, you know, controls upgrade, you did a new chiller plant, got on top of the maintenance, got 15%, and you're on the top 50% of the buildings in Seattle, not countrywide, you can get it alternative compliant. And that's one where we have to look. So anytime I talk to a customer, I have to ask them to share their Energy Star with us and have one of our guys look at that, because it's a difficult one to determine.
And it's flip-flop of Energy Star, where Energy Star 100 is perfect score, EUI is the opposite.
Absolutely.
The lower the number, the better.
Yeah,
And does that get them a buy for that 5-year cycle?
absolutely, yeah.
And that level 2, energy audit level 2, that's an ASHRAE,
Mhm.
ASHRAE energy audit.
Mhm. It's typically, a lot of actually government entities, school districts do that level 2 through their ESCO work. And it's a guaranteed energy savings audit, that level. And they can be pretty extensive. I don't see private customers doing too many of those. So I don't talk too much about that when I'm talking to customers. This one here seems to be a good one, and then this one, like I said, with DSHS, we're able to reframe the project from tune-up. We talked about the RZ system and phasing that out. They didn't unfortunately want to tear out all of it, they just want the new front end.
That's way better than that.
Yeah.
If they're just putting AX, front end, over the RZ. So, so basically they're gonna use the mosaics to, to basically convert the points from, lawn to RS-485.
So it will be able to be in front end over there.
Yes, you will. Good news.
Yeah.
Well,
There's a lot to
there's
it,
an
but I
RZ
mean,
each unit.
you're gonna have still have the same problem, right? When the RZ car takes a shit, you're gonna have to, go back, you're gonna have to figure out which one's bad, and then you're gonna have to try to reload it, and then, if it doesn't take, well
Why
then,
don't we do
at that
one-
point,
why don't we
then
do
then
one
we get
truck, so we'll
to
have some extra RZs.
try to sell them on a spider.
I'm
That's
serious.
where we're heading for, is that.
Oh, we're kinda getting off
Take it
topic,
down.
so I'll talk to you guys about it. That's only true on one floor of two. So like I mentioned before, that continuous commissioning, we can do the continuous commissioning. So Perry England is using that alternative, and he's pitching that to King County. King County already has some of their buildings on our analytics product. If they can push some of their other buildings before 19 and get 2 years worth of data, they can be alternatively compliant on those on their other buildings. So that's one way we can do it. We can also do that through a consulting process. It's more of a manual, labor-intensive process, but it's also another alternative for customers. I did choose this method for Seattle Hebrew as a good example, where if we were to do that audit, we'd come up with some action items that were pretty onerous in the way of you'd have to prove out that the windows are big enough to economize because they shut down the air handler that's supposed to bring in the fresh air. And if any CEM walks through that space, they're gonna know that air handler is supposed to be on. Why is it on? Oh, well, that's an $8,000 fix. Now all of a sudden they're on the hook. So we can do this to somewhat give them compliance through this way rather than going through the audit. Certifications, like I said, we can do those. This is a program, past due. January 15th was the last day to sign up for it. It was for smaller buildings to go get grant money. We have 5, I have 4 sold, 1 I have the paperwork for, and someone else is dilly-dallying with it. But this gets them the tune-up and gets them some grant dollars. The program's over with, but it should be known about it.
What are they saying on how it went? Did other people have as much problem getting engaged as we did?
Well, a lot of it happened like Martin Smith and Collier's, but Brad Middleton mentioned it really well, succinctly this morning, is why would I want to do this program on a building that I may not own in 3 years? So why, because you're doing this for the smaller buildings, which are due in 20 and 21. If you own that, you think you might be selling it between now and 21, why would you want to get someone else's, I mean, you don't get benefit out of it. And so a lot of them have pushed it. I think Collier's pushed their buildings. They had 4 or 5 buildings. They pushed those because it's, it's $15,000 you may not have in the budget. It's the extra hassle of having to manage that project because anything that we do, they have to manage, right? So they decided just not to do it. And you also have the fact that you can just do it in 2-3 years when it really comes due. Not worry about it now. Barriers. The other one that should be on here is brand new construction. If it's brand new construction, they don't have to worry about it. Penalties. Some people are just going to pay the penalty. It starts with small buildings, it's about $10,000. It goes up to $25,000. It's not really fair for the big buildings, so we're at $25,000 is the cap, and there's some big buildings that's not, up to a few cents a square foot, whereas these guys right here on the small end, that could be 20 cents a square foot, 15 cents a square foot. That's a lot of money for them. But it's a reality. It's an actual reality. You maybe just pay it. You're too busy, right? There's TIs coming, you got buildings coming in, engineering staff is minimal. Do you really want to hire someone? Gosh, they're going to be 15 and the penalty's 12. Shoot, why not just pay the penalty?
Is that every year or a cycle?
It's just a 1 per cycle, yeah.
That's not bad.
What's the 2,000?
So what they do, what they do is they send you a nasty letter 6 months after compliance date, say, hey, you're not compliant, it's red, it has all this flowery language about how you're not compliant, and it has a small fee. And then you have another 6 months to do it, just in case you want to do it, and then they give you the bigger penalty, 6 months after that. They may put people on the data website as non-compliant.
But the tune involves both the diagnosis and the repairs? Or is it just the diagnosis?
Well,
I mean, because you know, basically you coded up there that,
Just the diagnosis.
you know, one of them was like $11,000, that was just diagnosis.
That's just the diagnosis. You're right. So that's that gamble that our customers are doing is if you have a good maintenance program, maybe it's just the cost of the diagnostics and, you know, a few things like that you're gonna have to do. My conversation is we shouldn't find too much more, and it's gonna come out of your repair budget anyways. You have a repair budget, right? You know, you typically do your maintenance on your air handlers. If you find something, you fix it, right? Okay, yeah, they do. So it should be right out of their repair budget and not cause too much issue. Again, that's me saying it, right? Actually, them planning for it's different. But you're right, there is the cost of assessing it. There's required action items that they have to do to be compliant. So if we come back and say, hey, all your filters are dirty, and they don't change those filters, they're not gonna be compliant. They'll be penalized. You come back and say all the heat pump coils are dirty, you need to be cleaned, they don't do it, not be compliant. Now, if they come back and say, hey, one of the RTUs, 30-ton compressors failed out of 4 or 5, I've not asked them that question, but I don't think they're gonna say you're not compliant because you didn't fix that one 30-ton compressor on let's say, a Mammoth rooftop unit. That's my gamble, right? How they really gonna handle it, I don't know. I mean, it's just gonna consume energy, really.
Yeah, it just derates the system,
Yeah,
saves the money.
there you go. Last is the document, you gotta fill it out. They call it summarized, it's pretty summarized. Last slide I have for you guys is this slide. I'll send around some samples here. This is how we can help your customers. So this is an aggregate of presentations of Martin Smith and Colliers. We put together a proposed plan that lays out, you know, what you do each year. You know, this is, you know, beginning of end of 17, beginning of 18, some deadlines in here. This is how we can help them. If you have multiple buildings, when do you do what? That helps you there. We'll do by building action plan. So this one right here, this is actually a Provident building. They can do a tune-up. Maybe they can do Energy Star. They didn't share the Energy Star website with me, so how do I know if it's 90 or not? But if they share that with me, I can go have Brian Hansen take a look at it, and he can say, hey, wait, this probably will validate as or certify as 90 and above. That's an alternative compliance method. So we put those action items there on a sheet per each building, and then we can summarize it. And the benefit of summarizing on an Excel spreadsheet is you can start seeing the big picture. Both Martin Smith and Colliers, if they chose to do the accelerator and go get the grant dollars, I was telling them, hey guys, for the cost, I can get you compliant, at least the assessment cost, less than your penalties. So there's a little bit of dollars between the penalty cost and what our assessments would be to pay for action items. Can I guarantee it'll be lower than that? No. But for pretty much the penalty cost, you can be compliant. Good example for Martin Smith was the terminal sales building. They're thinking, hey, I gotta do a building tune-up on it. Well, it's a heat-only building that's 91, Energy Star. It's gonna certify, it's gonna get alternative compliance. Have us certify it for $3,000. I just saved you 25 or 15 or so on a penalty, or 15 on a tune-up. So those are things that we can do. I like presenting it this way with our customers because you can show, hey, this is what we, you know, what quantifies what the brain trust does, right? Is that, hey, this is how we can help you. And then, of course, customers where we do the maintenance, Martin Smith was that example as well. where we do the maintenance, we don't have to go look at the rooftop units or the heat pumps or the VAVs. We're already doing that. So back to the summary. Every building over 50,000 square foot, commercial space in the city of Seattle. I tell our customers that we look for low-cost compliance, and if we can't get you low-cost compliant, we look for methods to make it maximum impact. So retrocommissioning is going to give you more bang for your buck than maybe the building tunes. We'll recommend a retrocommissioning. We can help people with the full tune, partial tune, alternative compliance, and I would be primary contact or your account manager that you're used to working on your buildings would be a primary contact as well. And they'll probably call me. Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate your time. Went over, sorry.
No, you're good.
Thank you.
You guys ready for some exciting R22 talk?
R22?
Mark, you gonna hang out for a few minutes?
You know, I love your son.
This won't take very long.
I think I
Any
should.
more?
Are you gonna talk about Blue One?
Actually, we are testing it. We bought a pallet, and we have some in a system right now.
Just 3.
Well, it's a pallet of 4.
Oh, okay, you made it. Go ahead, keep going.
Well, Judge.